Hello and welcome to the Oracle Report for the month of June 2026. So happy to have you tuning in. Thank you for all of those who are returning and those who are new. Welcome. I will share a little bit about what this is about before we dive in. Oracle Report, I come on here towards the end of every month and I gather together different threads, wisdoms, themes from readings, messages from channeling, sometimes pieces from dreams or astrology that are meant to help guide you in the month ahead. Their purpose is really to offer you support. And some of the things might show up really exact in your life, and other things might only be like a little tinge of a presentation for you. Um, I usually start by pulling a card for the collective for the upcoming month. And this month we are working with the Priestess Oracle. And then after we pull the card, I will go into some of the different themes and wisdoms that came forward to share, to support you. So I always like to remind you that the ultimate barometer for truth, for love, for you finding your way in the upcoming month and in life, it rests within you. So everything that I shared today, take what works for you. I invite you to be open-hearted, open-minded, and curious to ways that it might be able to serve you, while also not feeling like you have to force anything that doesn't align for you. And sometimes they come up in surprising ways. And another thing I like to remind folks is that, messages from spirit are multi-dimensional. So in that, um, sometimes they have these meanings that are also multi-dimensional. Like, okay, this message makes sense from this one perspective, but it also makes sense in this other perspective. Um, I often like to describe it like a disco ball. It's like that's the multi-dimensional. All the different sides are the different dimensions, and there's different ways of looking at what the core energetic of that message is. Um, so they could apply in a myriad of ways, and sometimes it's like even funny and like plays on words and puns and whatnot that can happen. Um, okay, and because they're collective messages, I'll also say that they apply to us all in unique ways. There are certain ones that it's like they might really resonate, other ones it's just like a small percentage of it really is something that's alive for you, or maybe it's like you notice it more out in the world rather than yourself. So yeah, just be open to what stands out to you. Okay, so let's get started with the card. Oh wow, they're jumping. Okay. Well, so the first one, there's a couple that kind of jumped out, and I'm not going to do all of them, but we'll do the top one and the second one. The first one, top one, is gold frequency, Christ consciousness, divine light, and unconditional love. Mm, these are so pretty. And there's the second one that's here is the Ankh, key of life, divine geometry, and new world architect. Wow, yeah, these kind of align to what's come forward for this month already. I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and read the descriptions, and then we'll get into the themes. All right, so starting with gold frequency. Dear one, you are being guided in the ascension of your true essence, resonating with Christ consciousness that resides within your heart. The golden ray of light invites you to activate your Christed self, the one essence illuminating the true love embodied in all unifying beings, all realms, and all that is. Golden energy is the pure Christ frequency. And in our life, it symbolizes our union with the eternal living creation, absolute divinity. We are in an inner state of peace, benevolence, and true joy of being. This is the energy we are meant to hold within our bodies, the remembrance of our infinite belonging and loving nature. This divine golden light envelops you now, dissolving the illusions of separation and revealing the sacred unity of existence. Where have you been following the stories and sufferings of the ego? Where are you still holding on to judgments, resentments, and grievances? How are you allowing separation to still be in your life? Open yourself to receive the abundance of divine light through the cracks of the past illusions. Ooh, yes, that's good. That connects really well. Um, so I'm going to pause there. There's a little bit more, but I will. As typical, I take a picture of these descriptions and I usually post them on Instagram. I sometimes will send them on my email list as well, and they're posted in Sacred Lights as well. So you can read the full description and really spend some time with it that way. So let's read a little bit about the Ankh before we move on. Okay. Beloved, you are holding the Ankh in the palms of your hand right now, the most sacred key, which opens all dimensions and timelines, which shapes realities and weaves all forces of creation. This powerful symbol is the geometry of existence itself, the blueprint of all that is. The Ankh comes to you as a confirmation that you are ready to step into your multidimensional power and take your place in the shaping of the new civilization on Earth. Remembering and embodying this power is your birthright, and the time has come for you to unlock the sacred dimensions of our reality. The Ankh's presence is a confirmation that you are here to weave new realities that have long awaited your presence. You are a co-creator of our sacred existence. Okay, I pause there. That's perfect too. I love it. It connects to a couple of themes that came forward. Um, yeah, let me just get into them. I think that would be the easiest way to share about them. Okay. So, first theme that we have, this is kind of a quick one that I don't have to elaborate. It actually doesn't really even connect that well to the um the cards, but it will be quick to share about. So, celebrate life to create more light in your life. And I mean, that's kind of simple, but essentially, what the guides were touching on is bringing in more of the energy of celebration and celebrating life as it is in all of its messiness and all of the challenges and everything that comes forward in life. How can you love it? Celebrate it, say that this is like, right, there's divine here moving in all of us, regardless of what I experience, regardless of, maybe like the setbacks or the disappointments or the harm that's caused that we see that we can't control, and these things that happen that don't seem so great. Um, so focusing on how can I celebrate the movement of life, and this as being like a sacred prayer, a sacred devotion to creating more light in the world. And when I say more light, when they say more light, what it felt like they were trying to convey is more energy of lightness first, literally like feeling more free and light, and also the energy of truth, the energy of love, and us witnessing that more here manifest in physical reality. So it's like, what in your life can you start to just celebrate as it is? You know, especially looking at the things that you don't want to celebrate, but if there are easy things to celebrate, start there. Okay. So, all right, so this next one was talking about unrealistic standards for humanity that are breaking down. And this breakdown is tricky because we're still kind of expected in some ways that we can't quite escape yet. To like match up to some of these unrealistic standards, or we're still held by them. So that there's more of a shift this month where we're gaining back our power, and the guides actually broke it down into three different aspects that I'll talk about in soon. But starting here first, we are working with these unrealistic standards and kind of coming to a place of a peace. Um, so that we're not showing up in a way that diminishes ourself in like navigating the unwinding of these standards and structures in our society that aren't really honoring life, that aren't honoring humanity and the good in humanity, that aren't honoring earth, that aren't honoring the animals, the elements, the good that is there in it all. Or actually, these structures are, yeah, unrealistic. They're not authentic. They're not authentic to our authenticity, which is like the life that's in all, which is the light, the love, the truth that is behind everything. Like when you really look at everything, that's what's there. Um, so along with this, they were talking about how sometimes we start to kind of internalize these unrealistic standards, and we might um, start to have this like negativity or almost like self-violence as this happens. And it turns into, it's like where discipline, this is the one particular example they used where like where discipline starts to turn into, like perfectionism or resentment or judgment, self-judgment. So particularly, they were talking about the self with this example, but this happens in many ways. So this kind of call to look at um, like where might we be too hard on ourselves, really. It's like that's the essence of it. Because of these unrealistic standards that are have been placed on us and that we've had to sit in. We've had to work with them. We've had to deal with them. But they aren't authentic to our light. They aren't what is truly like honoring humanity and what is truly self-honoring. So, there's nothing wrong with like discipline, for example. We can use discipline in a way that is supportive and encouraging and loving and self-honoring, patient. But there's a certain point where it's like that structure of discipline, like bringing in that structure of discipline in our lives can actually start to turn and start to go into a place where it's like the judgment or disillusionment. So it's like, yeah, it's this question of where have you forgotten who you are? Where have you forgotten that you don't have to match up entirely to those unrealistic standards while working with them? And you can always, um, even when we have to work like with certain things in the world, certain systems and people or situations or structures that aren't conducive to love and truth and our light within, even when we have to do that, we still can come from a place that knows our worth and knows that we want to show up to that in a way that is still self-loving. We don't surrender that. And that's the fight that it felt like Spirit was saying, put your energy towards that. So the fight isn't like, oh, this stupid system, I'm just gonna tear it all down, and how could you? And it's more like, oh, all right, it's here. Okay, yeah, I see that that's not authentic. I see that I have to deal with it a little bit, but how can I still hold this love within myself, even with this system here? How can I still have self-respect? How can I still know that I deserve to be treated with love, consistency, um, the respect, the honoring? And how can you stand in that? Not in a way that you're trying to fight. And this is particularly, again, connected to like these unrealistic standards that was like, we're like healing a wound around that by deciding to reclaim that for ourselves. And then as we do reclaim that for ourselves, our right to be treated with love, the right to, it's like, really, it's remembering that we are that. And then that guides us and how to start to shift these unrealistic standards for humanity. Um, yeah, so this is like there's a call in June. Where are we holding on to these things, and where can we allow ourselves to just slowly start to soften back into our deeper truth, back into the love that's within us, and allow that to guide us and not get embroiled and not internalize that negativity. We don't take it into ourselves. Where are you holding it now? Where can you start to let go of that? We don't have to change the outside in order to change that. And that was kind of the main message. Start working there. Remember that because we all forget, you know, we're in a physical body and it's like, yeah, the physical does matter when we're here. And we forget that it's the inside, we got to change that first. So we just come back to the love within first. And then the outside, we just know what to do. It just flows. The divine moves through us. It moves through everyone else who chooses that. Okay. Um, So yeah, the Ankh, as it's talking about kind of reclaiming our power, like um and letting that power surge through. So we're clearing away those illusions of the ego, the judgment, depression, resentment, the things that might gunk up our field and give us less access to that just by choosing to just slowly, like come back to that remembrance inside ourselves and choosing to or doing our best to kind of notice when those things do come up so it can be like, oh, wait a minute, let me just take a step back. Hey, I'm feeling resentment. I know that's not my truth. I know I'm feeling that right now, but I know it's not it's like a truth because it's my experience, so it's like authentic in that way, but I don't want to give myself over to it. And how can I lean back into love? How can I lean back into my deeper power through that? And then that will help me navigate those things on the outside that, maybe I feel brought me to that place of resentment. Because we don't want to hold that in our systems. We can let those experiences move through and we transmute them by deciding to show up to those deeper knowings within us. Okay. So, yeah, this next message goes along with this as well. It was breaking through illusion at an incredible rate and calling upon love. And particularly talking about love as like the inner sun within ourselves. We're accessing, like the first card said, our Christ light. And as we come up to solstice, the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, there's like an extra surge of this love and calling upon the love of our inner sun and aligning to that. It's like we're riding a wave, a wave is coming as the solstice comes. And if we decide to open ourselves up to that energetic um, it supports us in kind of being able to break through some of those illusions, not only in ourselves, but in the world. I forget if this came up in last month's Oracle report, but it's definitely been present. So if I haven't mentioned it, it's been here where the like energy of illusion has been it's alive. And I mean, wonderful that this month it's like, all right, there's energetics coming that will help us start to break it down. And it's like it's not going to happen all at once. And we're just like in this constant sort of reorientation because we are growing at such an incredibly fast rate. Um, but also, apparently, that growth is helping us break through those illusions at equally incredibly fast rate. Okay. Yeah, and there was a particular naming in this message about how these illusions were very connected to the past. So many of them were seeded like a very long time ago. And some of that past might be our own personal past where we could find things where there was like illusion seeded. And this month in particular, there's just this opportunity to clear some of that and say, like, oh, right, I, whoa, I just noticed that I've been functioning in this illusion since I was 9 or something. And wow, okay, cool. And what we need to do is like, again, call upon love, call upon our inner sun, lean into that. You can do a meditation with it. You can do a little ritual on the solstice, but something that helps you to realign to that as like that's your resource. That's your inner resource that helps you to kind of um, not just like break through and then snap back, but to be able to allow it to have lasting transformation. Okay, so this next part. Um, so power is returning to us in this month, power and sovereignty. And the guides brought this through as forming through three particular areas in our energy field in the so personal and collective energy field. And the three areas are within the mind, the spirit, and the heart. And how do we start to reclaim some of our power? And it seemed like there was kind of the most information coming through in relationship to the mind, which, yeah, it's like maybe I shouldn't be surprised about that, but um, so we'll go there first. So, how are we having power come back through us, through the field, our mental field, and through the collective mental field? So, we are learning how to make peace with the ways of the past. So, those seeds of illusion that have kind of felt wounding, those structures that are like not conducive to life, that, as I had said before, that were like inherently held the unrealistic standards for humanity, for our divinity here embodied. We're learning to find peace. And I was also hearing the word truce. So it's I think that was important. Like it is ultimately peace, but we might need to understand it as a truce because there's a certain amount of letting go that most of us are being asked to do in relationship to this. So the structures that we see out in the world that really, bother us, that have caused harm, that we're just like, what is happening? This needs to stop. Like coming to a place in order for our own mental health where we can find a place of truce, a place of peace with those structures, a place of truce, a place of peace, of like willingness to just, all right, it's not that we're saying when we let go, it's just like forgiveness work, you know. It's not like we're saying when we let go of those things in the past that were illusion, that were like, you know, really just not in service to creation, not in service to love and truth. Those structures, when we decide to let it go, we're not saying, "Oh, hey, it's okay. No problem." That's not what's happening. We're actually allowing ourselves to come to peace and come to clarity. Because one of the things that's happening now is our mental fields are just like um, polluted almost, or for lack of a better word. They're like, yeah, it's like littered with so much stuff, so much energy, so much that isn't in service. And it's almost like we're holding on to the energy of like the reaction, the mind trying to process and figure out like, all right, why did we do this in the past? And why are these structures like this? And trying to like fight them and fig in the figuring because we want to like protect and we want to heal. Really, you know, that's what we want to do. But in that, we're holding all of this like litter in our mental field, and it's making things very unclear. And there's this call, it's like the letting go, just finding how can I make peace with the past? How can I just be like, all right, truce, fine. That's how it's been. I know what my reality is, and that's how we come back to the power and the sovereignty. Like my center, my reality is truth and love, and I'm gonna choose that, and that's where I can find that truth. I'm not saying, I'm not condoning any of these things that are not conducive to life. I'm just saying I know what I choose. And it's really funny because one of the messages that came through this month too is like not choosing a side, but in a way we are. So it's like you have to choose the side of love, right? And we are kind of like under the thumb a bit of these things that are not in service to love, that aren't really aligned to that, you know. And that's when we get stuck and caught in the illusion of it. Um we think we're fighting it, we think we're fixing it, but really it's just we're like spinning in that, and the field is like not clear. Um, so there was also, along with this, so and just remember too, one of the big messages was about how these like illusions and these structures that aren't conducive, they are falling, they are changing, you know, and many of us, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're in this camp too. We're here to hold the light during that process so that we can have like a successful death and rebirth, and um, stay aligned to what is truly important, regardless of the show that's playing out, you know. Okay. Where can we agree to disagree came up. So again, that's that like truce energy. Like, where do we need that in our life? It's available for this month, and it will help you reclaim power, especially in your mental field. And this isn't like power over or control, or this is divine power that we're talking about. This is sovereignty that is on the side of love. Um, so in this agree to disagree piece, there was a mention about how for many of us, and this is happening maybe on like the world stage too, you know, at the higher levels where um it's like if you don't have anything to push against, there's nothing there to push against. You can't fight, right? So if there's disagreement, there's like that tension. But if one of us is just like, all right, you know, it's like a agree to disagree, it's like truce, then you can't like push anymore. And there was this piece of like, where's our mind getting stuck in this tension, and what is that doing to us? That's again like littering up our field with things that aren't in service to love. And we need to, or there's this, as I understood it, it was like there's a call this month to let our mind unstick. And what are we like, what have we been really stuck that our mind has been trying to figure this thing out, or it's just been like pouring, draining us. All of our energy is going towards working on this thing. And this is like collective. So it's not just like, oh, it's just this showing up in this personal way. These are like deeper currents of energy. And even if you don't have like a big thing that your mind has been trying to reconcile or figure out that has been tense in your life, you might still be affected by this because yeah, it's happening on the world stage. It's the whole earth, the human consciousness is like working on this. And um, what is your mind stuck to that you're like, this needs to be reconciled one way. This is the only way. And then how can you stop pouring energy there, just like let go of that tension and lean back into love. And again, it's not giving up your values, it's not condoning something that's not condonable. It's lightening the field for a moment to allow clarity to come through. Um, okay. So the guys are talking about how the field of the mind is changing our mental field, both like the personal mental field and the Earth's mental field, the collective mental field and the human collective mental field is evolving. And in order for this to be like, for it to evolve in the best way, this is part of why we're called right now for truce, so that we don't have our mental field littered with this like need to fight, which is really just stuck on those seeds of illusion because they don't make sense to our divine selves. Our divine selves are just like, what? Why would you do something that isn't conducive to love, Why would you plant seeds of deception or illusion or like why would we go against that? So we're just like spending too much energy working on it. And um but there's an evolution happening and all of us can have a part in that. And that's what spirit's calling attention to. Like your part in it. How can you show up to it? They want you to. Like, yes, help forward this. And this is the way to show up to it right now. Truce, peace, stop pushing, and trust. And they talked about many, many blockages in the mental field that prevent us from seeing clearly that this is what it will help to start to clear. And we don't have to rush. There's also like a big feeling of patience around it. So as we come back into our center of safety and patience, um, it will become clear over time. We don't have to be like, okay, I made peace. I said it's a truce. Okay, now what is it? Like what's the actual truth? It's like always revealing itself to us. It's a divine dance, a flow of energy, and we are right in it. It's right here all the time. And the more that we have that patience, it's like it is revealed to us. The more that we choose to come back to remembering it's like right here, right now, the more that we see it. Okay, so the next area that we are regaining power in the month of June, in particular, during the solstice, and our parts of our soul power coming back to us, if we choose. So, in the realm of spirit, what is coming back to us? And the message was around devotion and perseverance, staying devoted to um, first devoted to love, first really devoted to your soul and the truth and love that is in you. that will never go away. It's eternal. And how can I show up to just remembering that? That's what perseverance really is. It's not like forging ahead or pushing through anything. It's remembering that and saying, oh, right, I'm eternal. I could go on and on and on. And in saying that, again, it's not like force. You shouldn't be, it's not something that creates like, oh, like an exhausting type or exhausted type feeling. It's more about spirit endlessly provides love. It's always there for us if we just choose to connect to it. And that is part of what the power is. And it's like remembering that. And it gives us the energy that we need to show up to life, to show up for ourselves, to show up in love. And we're eternally fueled in that way. That's where that, like true centering in on devotion. And the guide shared that this month, um, this might show up in kind of like looking at what in your life you want to kind of channel that devotion to. Like what is really worthy in the physical world of that right now. What feels so aligned to you to channel that energy towards. Um, they also said it could be important to make a decision. And maybe part of you wants to make a decision about, okay, I'm going to be devoted to this. I care about it. I want to see it grow. To make that kind of commitment to something. Okay. Is there anything else of that? That was kind of a quick one. No, I think that's it. I'm sure we'll come back if it's not. So the next realm where we're regaining our power is in the realm of the heart. And the word that was coming for the heart in relationship to regaining soul, regaining our light, our power, sovereignty, this month was balance. And it was shown as like the heart as being the center point for um, our lights, for everything. It was like this is where we find ourselves here in the heart, and we come back to our center. Ooh. So the idea was like, how do we balance all the forces in our lives so we can stay there? And what do we need um, to allow us to feel whole and full and centered and balanced where we're really meant to be, like right alignment, um, where our body, mind, and spirit are all balanced together. There's like a right amount of energy in the body, in the mind, in the heart, in the spirit. It all feels like harmonious together, working together, and we haven't ignored any part of us. We're listening to it all, which comes back to the wholeness and healing that does happen through being centered and balanced in the heart. So with this, there was also a message, a question that I was hearing is like, are we open to receive? And what ways can we bring attention to that in the month of June in order to gain more balance within ourselves and within our heart? And the first thing that we receive really is like nourishment from the divine, nourishment, and that comes from being in our heart, from returning to that sacred place of healing and fullness and peace and joy and love and balance and nourishment. And when we allow ourselves that space, how much can start to shift in our lives. And that's where the power starts to come back this month, is when when and if we decide to make that choice. Okay. Um, yeah, being like right sized was really talked about too in relationship to the heart and regaining our power. Because power, true power, again, we're talking about like divine power, which is the most powerful forces on earth, is like, or in creation, excuse me, love, truth, the most powerful forces on earth. That's where our power really comes from. But in our human experience, the ego is sneaky and its job is to, like get its needs met and to stay alive. And in that, sometimes we can fall into like the human power or the ego power, I would say. It's where it's like we're being too small or too big. This in particular was highlighted in relationship to the ego power and leaning back into our heart power. Where are we like shrinking ourselves? Maybe because we've seen how folks get inflated in their ego power and how they fall out of alignment with their heart. They fall out of alignment with action that's rooted in service or in devotion to love, to the divine. It starts serving the ego instead. And because it can happen sometimes in such a sneaky way, I think like many folks are like, well, I'm not gonna be like that. And then though you might lean too much into like the shrinking or the like not considering yourself and taking good care of yourself and figuring you into the picture and being self-honoring and really honoring the beautiful light that you are without it needing to be an ego thing. Like it's like we're all beautiful and that doesn't dilute anything. You can still experience the beauty of you and that light when we're really connected to it. It's not about being better than or more powerful or in control of others or um, yeah. So I would doubt that anybody listening to this might lean towards the too big side, but we can. I mean, we all can at times where we could get inflated in our sense of like power that is really based on the ego rather than our divinity. And it's something to always watch. And yes, like how might we fall out of balance, go into the too small or the too big side of things? And how can we come back into balance? You have an extra layer of support that is calling you um, back to the balance of that for you right now. Because it's alive. It's a moving alignment. So it's not like you find it once and you're good, you're done. It helps you for the future, but we always have to stay in relation to where our center point is, where our balance is. We always have to choose to come back to the heart, to choose to be aware of ourselves and how we might slip into either side of things, and to choose compassion for ourselves. And that's the magic, the transformational magic that happens in our heart space when we go there. We know how to deal with it already. It's like we don't even have to stress or figure it out or it doesn't have to be as arduous. No, the heart is a beautiful, powerful, wise guide and healer. It knows. Okay. So yeah, and this next piece was talking about balance and the heart and power coming back to the heart through or through the heart. Um through finding a balance between not skimming the surface or spiritual bypassing, um, but also not like getting lost in the unconscious or like the depths of emotion just kind of throwing us around. We're just like I'm gonna be embodied and I'm gonna get into it. And then sometimes we can just get like really thrown around in that. Like, absolutely, it's important to be embodied. Absolutely, it's important to stay connected to our higher spiritual knowing and vision. But they're both important, and we need to find the right balance of that for certain times in our lives. At certain times we might need a bit more of like lifting into our higher selves uh, viewpoint, perspective. And other times we might really need to kind of dig down into some of the depths of the physical and embodied experience and the depths of us and um, looking in the shadows and working through different wounds and um, yeah, like mining around in our minds and all of that has a place. And none of it is necessarily bad or wrong, but what is your right balance right now of all of that? And how do you hold them together so that you're truly in balance? And when you're at a balanced place, there is this kind of like what I find, it's kind of like a relief that I feel in my heart. And that tells me, okay, this is right. And then sometimes the tension starts to build. Like if I'm like, all right, I found my balance point. I've done just enough of the deep unconscious work and the transcendent work. And I feel great. I'm right here. I got that sense of like, oh, relief. Yes, I got it. Truth, clarity. And then attention starts to build. It's really subtle at first, and you might feel like a little off balance, and then it's like a little more and a little more and a little more, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I leaned too much on the transcendent side, and I need to go dive under here for a while. It's moving, it's always moving. And at the same time, you're always you. Your heart is always at the center point. And as we interact with the world and as we are, it's like we're the living expression of spirit. And it's this constant call to know how to dance with it so that we can stay in that center point and listen to the waves of tension and where they're calling us back into right alignment. Okay. So there was also this understanding that came through that was kind of interesting. I was talking about transcendence, and so now I was just detailing like the sort of pole of transcendence and like the depths of the unconscious and the subconscious um, and the shadow. So we're talking about transcendence as inclusion was the phrase that came through. And there was this sort of vision of how like, well, sometimes we think that like there are these sayings out there, rise above it, or we want to ascend, we want to transcend this reality. And then for a while, that was like a valued um, way of being. And then it's kind of come into like, well, wait a minute. What about dissent? And what about like being authentic and being embodied and being here and fully present in our experience? And we're alive. We're not supposed to to leave, or just to lift up out of the embodied experience. We want to like take the spiritual awareness into the body. We want to have them be together, to be in love and unified and harmonized. Um, so in that way, sometimes transcendence has been seen as it's like being ignorant of the descent and ignorant of the body. Um, so the way the guides are describing it is like, well, there is a way of transcendence that is inclusive. It's inclusive of dissent, and um, they showed me this evolution into like eminence or immanence, but kind of like radiating from within. And that happens as our consciousness is able to, yes, like ascend and descend at the same time. And that creates this like immanence. Um, but they almost were trying to say, don't forget that the ascending and the transcending things does have value. And it's an important part of the picture that actually can include all of it when done the right way. And that's all the information I can share about that. It felt like a really layered and deep thing. I don't even know if I quite wrap my head around it yet, but there you go. Um, so yes, and then they were talking about transcendence, inclusive transcendence as reconnecting to our higher purpose, which is actually reconnecting to the grace and divinity that's already within us. Um, so they're also talking about in the realm of the heart and regaining our soul, our power, our light, our divine power is like, where can we come? And this is a similar energy to the truths that was being spoken of in the mind, but where can we come back to a place of neutrality and not need to pick a side? And particularly, they were talking about like a human side. So like we're always on the side of love. I mean, I think that's everyone's inherent truth, and it might take us a while to remember that sometimes, or to find it, or figure out how we actually do that. But I think that is our inherent truth. That's my belief anyway. And um, that's there, but it's not a side because there is only love. And that's the only side to be on. So when we start to divide, we're actually saying that there's not only love. We're going into separation consciousness. Um, so this idea is like healing of that. Like, where in our life have we gone into separation consciousness? Have we said like, I need to pick a side? I need to fight. Like, I can't be neutral. I have to stand up for, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. Um, they're saying, where can you bring this back in as a medicine? It's like, yes, sometimes you do need to pick a side when we're here and embodied, or you do have to stand in perspective, or like, no, this is what I'm gonna do. This is where my clarity exists. So I don't feel like they were trying to say anything against that necessarily, but it's like, how can we bring in the energy of neutrality as a medicine for the ways that separation consciousness has kind of gripped us? And come back into like a healthy balance? And where can we stop taking sides? Because there are no sides, there isn't actually a division. There's only oneness. And how can we let that truth that already exists within our heart just start to kind of like ripple out into our energetic field, into our heart field, into our mind's mental field, into our emotional fields, into our physical body to help us in our lives so that we don't get caught in distortion and tension and turmoil and lack of clarity. Okay, so just a couple more here before we wrap up. So this next message that came through is about making peace with potential. So not only are we making peace with the past, the illusions, the seeds of illusion, and um, the structures that are not honoring our light, not honoring humanity, not honoring life. Um, we're also making peace with the future and the potential of what could be created. And so this goes back a little bit to hope. And if we don't first make peace with the past, we can't make peace with the future and open up to new potential. Things are going to go the way they're going to go. So it's kind of like in this too, we might be bringing healing to some anxiety, and we might become aware of ways that we have been in anxiety and haven't even realized it. Um, there was kind of this message of how can we just start to lean back a little bit, like lean out of, in particular, fighting or controlling the future. So like fighting what you don't want, because that's just gonna beat it, and not needing it to be a certain way in order for you to be okay. It's just like trusting that the light within will guide you, and that's all you need. It's all you need for the future. There's so much that's possible. So don't attach yourself too adherently to um, the potential of the future. Make peace with it. Okay. So this last piece is kind of wrapping up what a lot of these messages were saying, which is that there's a way being cleared by some of this power being returned to us this month through the light of the solstice available to us. And they talked about, so I mean, I just heard this very clearly. It wasn't really actually a lot of talking about. It was just one message. Something is coming. And the way is being cleared for that. And we want to allow what is to come and make peace again with the potential of the future. Make peace with what is coming through and trust in it. And trust that that trust is easier to hold as we do this work and allow ourselves to receive our divine power in these ways that were touched on this month. Um, it's almost like we don't have to like force ourselves to trust in the future or make peace with the future. It happens a bit more naturally as we just allow what is inherent to return, as we bring our focus to the mind, the spirit, and the heart, and what energies are here for us, trying to help us navigate for the future. So that is all for today. Want to thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your time and attention and heart, and I'm wishing you many blessings in June and a beautiful solstice, a beautiful return of your divine power this month. I hope that all that is meant for you, you receive. Blessings. And I will again post a picture of all the descriptions of the cards so you can really tune into them and dive deeper into the messages. That will be on Instagram, in my email, and on Sacred Lights. Happy June.